All right, good evening. This is the September 21st, 2023 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. The time is 6:01. Our first order of business this evening will be to recess into work session to review the cases. We will reconvene the general session at 6:30. So with that, we're convening to work session. All right, item 2 on the list here is the beginning of the work session. I'm going to start with the roll call. Commissioners, as your name's called, you can respond with the presence there. I'm Ed Haas, Chair of the Commission. I'm present. Vice Chair Glenn Portman.
Present.
Commission Member Sue Blankenship.
Present.
Commissioner Cindy Bishop.
Here.
Commissioner Freddie Guerra.
Present.
Commissioner Kent Heffernan.
Not yet.
And not yet. Okay. And Commissioner Ed Marr.
Not yet.
Not yet. I did receive a note that he's about running 15 minutes late, so he should be in there somewhere a little after 6:05. All right, so first order of business on beginning the work sessions. Mary, if you could introduce staff and then begin with the review of the cases tonight.
Yes, so good evening, everybody. Mary Coppell, Senior Planner. And tonight we have Mr. Matt Steer, Development Services Administrator, Cole Baker, our EIT Graduate Engineer, Desiree Rollman, Code Compliance, Wanda Saee, Senior Administrative Assistant, Shelby Fletcher, Planning Secretary. We have Aaron, and a new member to our team, Aaron Tainter, who's the new Assistant Director of Public Works Engineering. And Steve.
He's our chief building official.
Chief building official. Sorry, Steve. All right. So we do have several cases this evening. I'll let Matt Steer take the first two since they are his cases.
Thank you, Mary Crone Boswell. Appreciate that. So item number 5 on the agenda is a really simple case. It relates to a pool setback from the main structure. This is a property in Coppell Greens. They do have small backyards, but they have a common area easement at the end of their backyard, which essentially eats up 10 feet of their backyard. So this person really wants a pool. He's worked with Robertson Pools to get a design put together that doesn't meet our 5-foot separation from the house. In other cities, we've found that there's an engineering letter will suffice, stating that there's no conflict with the foundation of the pool and the main structure, or if there is a conflict, that they will work the foundations together to make sure it makes engineering sense. So that's our recommendation, is that they provide us an engineered letter for engineered plans. And I guess after that case is heard, we do have a text amendment basically making that a regulation within our code of ordinances, allowing for the engineered letter or the engineering plans in lieu of the 5-foot separation requirement. So we don't have to keep bringing cases like this through the process.
How many cases have we brought through this process?
We haven't.
So why would you do a text amendment just for one case in 40 years?
Well, it's been common practice to allow an engineering letter. The recent ordinance amendments did set up that setback requirement of the 5 feet. And so this is just going back and allowing that in lieu of the 5-foot.
Right, I'm just saying you're doing a whole ordinance text amendment
we have
for
had
one case in...
No, we have had numerous cases in the, recently. So,
just curious. That's
yeah.
a lot of time, money, and effort spent on one case.
Yeah. So it's more than one case.
Okay. 2?
It's more than 2.
7?
I don't know offhand how many cases, Sue.
Okay.
If I may.
Sure.
Technically speaking, the change in verbiage just brings us into alignment with the municipalities around us. They don't provide a large portion of our properties the same options that they have in our neighborhood.
So how many cases?
So going back through recent history, not total history, but recent history, the same manufacturer for this pool has had multiple and well over 10 permits of the exact same type approved in other municipalities. For them, we have turned them down 3 times on 3 other pools for being too close to the property lines. So we've had at least 3 other residents who were unable to get a pool because of the setback restrictions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any safety issues, the 1.5 feet from one side of the yard to the other, just for emergency, is there any concern there?
Yeah, well, so we looked at that, and there is an emergency egress requirement from a bedroom. And so, Steve, it was 30 inches is the max, or the minimum distance that's allowed for the landing. So they're meeting that.
Okay. And staff's comfortable with it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And so that concludes my 2 cases. Mary?
Okay. So, I guess before I get to my 2 cases, I'm just gonna give you guys the update for the last city council meeting, just in case we run out of time. So, the cases that you saw in the last month, the East Haven, the trees, for the resident where it was in the common area, that was approved by city council. Kroger, the gas station, the relocation of the gas station to the corner of Sandy Lake and MacArthur, that was also approved at the last city council meeting. And then the Denton Tap case where we had the residence and the office building in between Bethel, I forget the other street, architect's office and residence, that was approved. AstraZeneca with their tank farm expansion, that was also approved. And then the short-term rental on K Street was also approved at the last city council meeting. So now I'll start with what's on tonight's agenda.
And can I interject?
Yeah.
The architect property, that is where the kids went to hang out at Hell's Gate, is what it was called.
Okay. He did show some pictures of, I think, the bridge and all the graffiti and stuff down there.
That's what the high schoolers called it.
Yeah. So on tonight's agenda, item 7 is a public hearing for a special use permit for our second short-term rental. So we have 10 currently in existence. And so, like I said, back in May, City Council approved an ordinance now requiring a special use permit. So this will be our second one that's coming through the process. Very similar to the one on K Street. This one's on Bradford Drive. The residents live there. They rent out one of their bedrooms. They've had it since 2019. They've been operating. They lived in that house since 2013. And so they have space in the back, driveway for cars. There's one bedroom that have a bathroom. They also share the backyard area. So they're listed on Airbnb. We did check with code compliance as well as police department. We haven't had any complaints for this address related to the STR. We also checked with finance, and they are up to date with their quarterly hot taxes for this site. And so they're just, coming through the process in order to be able to maintain their short-term rental. Currently, most of our short-term rentals run through at the end of February. So they need to come in order to keep going without interruption through this process. So I think we've had one person who lived around there call, and I kind of explained to them, they've had it since 2019, yada yada. And so they weren't, they didn't have any objections. We do have another 4 that are within like the 800 feet that did just email a response letter in opposition. Do you have any questions on that one?
I just had a question, it's more of a comment. When we looked at that, the short-term rental ordinance, I was envisioning people renting out their entire house, right? And I was concerned about that, so I thought the change in the ordinance would be good, because, you don't want, spring breakers or big party house, but the last one and this one are just people renting out a room, so I feel like that's different, but I just wondered what other people thought about that. I wondered if it's really worthy of each time looking at this to the same level as renting out an entire house.
Well, you advertise on the same websites,
Yes.
right? So
Right.
it's the same process,
Well-
it's the same,
Right, but I wouldn't have the same concerns about somebody renting out a room as compared to somebody renting out their entire house.
okay, but what if they rented out this bedroom to George and this bedroom to Ralph and this one to, and then they weren't even there?
But that would be the entire house. Yeah, right. Okay.
But
So that's what's happening on Bradford, essentially.
Mhm.
You've got 5 men living in the house.
This one here?
Yes,
Oh, okay,
the owners don't live there.
okay.
It's not what, maybe different information than I have.
I
Yeah.
walk by it every morning, every evening.
Okay, so what they applied for, the owners did live there, they're renting out 2 bedrooms, right? Just 1 bedroom? Okay.
But the ordinance doesn't distinguish between full house or 1 or 2 rooms, right? It just says STR.
That's correct.
Right.
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 Hence the process, Carol.
That's Sandy.
Whatever.
Is it Carol?
Call him George.
So,
Okay.
the next item on the agenda is Blackberry Farm. So, as you know, this has been going through the process for a while. The last amendment that we did have was in 2022, July, where they reduced the number of lots down to 63. So in terms of, lot layout, et cetera, it's the same layout. The project is under construction, the roads are almost done. They'll still have 54 residential lots in the first phase, 9 in the second phase. What this change is asking for is for it to be a private gated community. So essentially, they would put gates at the entry, and unless you live there, you wouldn't be able to get in. You'd have, a keypad number. But that also means that the HOA is responsible for maintenance of everything.
Including the streets.
Including the streets. So that's one part of their ask. The second part of their ask is to change Lot 2X, which was originally approved for like a farmhouse with different garden areas around it, that they could, sell seasonal gardening stuff 4 times a year for like twice or 2 weeks at a time. So now what they're proposing is like a full amenity package. So the garden would be gone. They would have, what they're proposing is like a pool area, bocce ball courts, grilling station, cabana, another building for the pool equipment and bathrooms, change areas, as well as 2 pickleball courts. So this is a kind of a big departure from what was originally approved, and in our discussion with them, we did say, are you, have you been talking to the neighbors? Because there's one neighbor who's directly adjacent who is is mostly impacted with this change. So, we did send out letters, and we did receive a phone call from that neighbor, essentially saying, that they were not in favor of the amenity center portion of that request. When this was approved, they had the farmhouse and the garden center, and they were okay with that. And I think I sent all of you a letter, or their letter that they sent in last night, citing their concerns with, lighting, the noise from the people having large gatherings at the pool, as well as the noise from the pickleball courts. So, originally our recommendation was to approve the request, but based on kind of that new information, we're looking to amend our recommendation. So, I'll be asking Mr. Holmes if he's had a chance to talk with the neighbors, to see if they've maybe come up with something that they're both happy with. Otherwise, so my options are going to be to either, recommend tabling it so that it gives them an opportunity to maybe reconfigure some things on here. Otherwise, staff will be recommending that approval of the gated portion, but not approval of the amenity package for lot 2X. So just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that. Do you have any questions?
So in terms of the modification, on what, I understand you received the letter, but on what basis are you suggesting not, or suggesting tabling it or not approving it? Like what's the core issue besides just the opposition?
So it was our understanding that they had talked to the neighbor and that they were all on board with it, and that's why we went with the recommendation that we did, because we had similar concerns in terms of, this is a departure from what was originally approved. Are you sure your neighbors are good with having pickleball courts, because they're very loud, and the pool, and so we tried to make some accommodations for it, like the original PD conditions said, no lights for the pickleball courts, and that is to, kind of limit the use of the pickleball courts so that people aren't playing like late into the evening. So, we've tried to make some accommodations for that. But like I said, when the neighbor came back to us and said, no, we aren't in favor of that. So I don't know if there was some miscommunication between them or what have you, but, they've been living there for 10 years. Their bedrooms side on that side of the house. And so that's why we did what we did. We're planning to do what we're going to do.
Yeah, it's going from a really passive community center to an active community center.
Hello, Matt.
Hello.
Good evening. How are you doing? Good.
So if it were tabled, how long would you give them? Would it be for the next meeting? Would it be 60 days or 90 days to work this out, or?
So we have to table it to a date certain.
Yes.
So, if they think they can get it worked out before the next meeting, or if they think they need, we could table it that time, and then if they need more time, we could table it again, but it would have to be to a date certain.
Okay. Then I do have a question on the gated part. What's the driver or the justification for them wanting that?
So there's probably, several different factors. One is they've probably been talking with people who have asked them, is this going to be a gated community? And so I think that got him thinking, well, maybe I could change it into a gated community. So it allows for, more privacy. I'm sure there's other, economic factors that go along with that. But, the streets, typically, these things, they typically ask for these things before. It's very rare that they ask for them later. So, because the streets are built to city standards, we'll still have access for utilities to maintain the utilities.
And fire.
And fire, exactly. But, he can answer that question probably a little bit more in depth.
I remember one last question, I meant to look
Yeah.
this up, but how many other gated communities do we have?
So we have one.
One, okay.
On River Chase. It's on the east side of River Chase, surrounded by the golf course. Not the west side, just the east side. Is the only one that I'm aware of.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Has there been any problems, Mary, with regards to O&M and any typical issues with road maintenance?
I have to defer to
the other
engineering,
existing-
but do you know?
Yeah, so every once in a while, there will be people that reach out to us and ask about maintenance of the roads, and we explain to them that it's HOA maintained. We will go out there and talk with them and advise them on what they can do, but we tell them that it's ultimately up to their HOA to maintain it.
Yeah.
But if this is being agreed that they will maintain the city standards, does that not give the city the ability to inspect routinely the streets, make sure they're being maintained, et cetera?
Nope.
No, because, once we accept the project and then it's turned over to them, and Coley can tell me if I'm wrong, then it's their responsibility to make sure that it's maintained. So if they start getting a pothole, I'm sure we'll get a call, but we'll refer them back to, their HOA, because it would be part of their HOA responsibilities.
But they would be required to maintain them. Our code enforcement department would be able to go out and say, hey, these don't meet code, you have to fill the pothole. They are fire lanes, so they need to maintain them for emergency access.
Okay. And then with regards to how the cost is shared within that development, I presume since they're asking to go for a gated community, private streets, that in the contracts, it'll state that HOA is responsible for maintaining and there's, I don't know if the formula is written, but that the owners that buy into the neighborhood, they're fully aware they're responsible.
Right, so if this gets approved, what would end up happening is the plats that are currently in place would be vacated and we'd have to replat the property, showing the streets as common area lots. And we put notations on there saying, these are private gated streets to be maintained by the HOA. And that language would also, follow into their HOA documents as well.
And those plats are already recorded, aren't they?
Right, but what I'm saying is, we would vacate the plats, so basically take them back, saying like it never happened, and then replat it, showing the streets as, one more of their common area lots, which has to be maintained by the HOA.
Mary, on the existing gated community at the River Chase, those are private streets as well, is that correct, or are they public?
No, it's a gated community.
Private.
They're private,
Yeah.
right? Have you run into any issues there relative to maintenance or any problems with that community?
I think just like Cole was saying earlier, every once in a while they probably get phone calls and then they have to,
Or further back?
yeah, saying,
HOA.
this is a private street, and it is the responsibility of your HOA to maintain.
But I
And that's
mean,
part of their dues.
in terms of broken roads or anything that's not maintained properly, have you run into any issues like that over the years? How long's it been that way, a private gated community?
Well, it was that way when I moved in '06, so it's been a long time. Late '90s probably,
Late
that it's
90s.
built.
It was the original development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd have to look back.
Well, that's okay, I mean,
Yeah.
it's been quite a while.
Right.
So, how does staff feel about these public streets? I mean, I kind of get the sense that you think that it's not a good thing.
I didn't say that.
I don't know, I'm just getting this,
So, private streets just means that the city is out of the picture. At the point where we accept the project, it's now theirs to maintain. So, they have to make sure that there's, that their dues,
sure,
all that falls
all
into
of
the
that's squared away
calculations.
properly, yeah.
Yeah, and so one other thing is typically we would be opposed to a private street because the streets tie into the grid pattern of the city. These are out on their own. These are only serving this one subdivision. So this one's kind of a one-off that we can support.
Mm.
Yeah. It's
I
kind
drove
of
it
at the
today,
edge
it
of town, so.
looked really lovely what they're doing over there, but it's a pretty nice development.
Yeah. It's at the edge of town, so like Matt was saying, it doesn't really, it's not like you're going through there to get to somewhere else. You're going there.
It's a destination.
It's a destination, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
A couple months back, we looked at like a compound, right, for the developer, wasn't that? Was that
Phase
Blackberry
2.
Farms, right?
Yeah, Phase 2, where he went down from 20 lots down to 9.
Right, he's got like animal barns and stuff, right, in this compound. Will that be part of this gated community?
Yes.
Yes.
That's Phase 2.
Okay.
Mary, this Blackberry Farm seems it's gone through many variances and conditions. How many are there on this development? I just feel like there's more and more being layered on top.
It's 18 plus 6, is that right?
So we're down to, let's see. I printed off the last one.
They're probably letters.
And while you're looking at
Yeah.
a quick hypothetical, what if, let's just say that bridge crumbles and the bridge has to be replaced? And I don't know what that bridge costs, $5 million, $2.5 million. But that's $2.5 million divided by 74 lots.
63.
I'm sorry?
63 lots.
63 lots. And let's just say, what if the residents, the HOA can't provide for that? What recourse does the city have to say, you fix it, you find a way to borrow money to fix it?
Yeah, like at some point, if that happens, I would think you could put a lien on the properties to pay for that, right?
But then that burden comes back to the city.
Yeah, well, so in any HOA, in any subdivision that can't be properly maintained, that burden would fall back on the city, and we would assess, we would go back and put a lien on the properties in order to make those improvements, right? But you're right, the bridge is a major expense, and so we made sure that the owner or the subdivision was planning to maintain that.
It's not, it wouldn't be fair for us to maintain the bridge when it doesn't serve the entire community.
Yeah, Yeah, it's basically a big cul-de-sac if you think about it, in Sandy Lake.
But yeah, I think that's a really good question that the chairman raised, you know, what if the HOA went bankrupt or something, then what happens? I don't know.
You got 10 years worth of litigation.
You remove
It's
the
a
gates
mess.
and make it public.
And then the city has to fix everything, yeah.
I guess it then goes back to my original question. That was my concern too, but just again, what's the driver for the gated community? Because it just seems there's so many other issues that.
You would need to ask him, but it's,
I mean, on the face of it, it seems great. Oh, good. The development will take care of the roads, all that. But at the end of the day, there could be some major issue and comes right back in worse condition than, say, if the HOA wanted to say, well, golly, we just can't afford this anymore. We want the city to take over these streets, and what is the recourse then? We would say, yeah, we'll take them back, but you have to improve them to current standard, like, you know how TxDOT are required to, on those turnback streets, they're required to build the street or refurbish the street to new conditions with in that hypothetical situation, would that be the same thing? We'll take it back once you redo all the streets and make sure it's in a new condition.
You can do that if you want to, but the simple answer is we just don't do this.
Yeah.
And I mean, how is that any different than, I mean, how is that any worse than if the city owned it from the start? Because
Because the city inspects it from the start.
They
it's
start
true, but
inspecting it
like
all.
for, like.
Streets are on the ground.
You know, the streets that I live on haven't been replaced since they've been built in the 90s. And so they've been certainly maintained, but I don't know that would be, if the developer didn't do what they should do, I don't know if the city would be in any worse position by taking it over at some future point than not.
Right, because at this point, all those streets have already been poured and inspected by the city.
Right, so they
Anyway.
should have some sort of, if they were developed correctly, they should have some sort of lifespan.
exactly.
And so, yeah, I have a hard time getting to the financial case that this is gonna be somehow worse for the city in a dramatic way. If anything, it puts more burden on the homeowner,
It does.
longer term, because they're gonna have to, over year maintain the streets. Yes, at some point in the future, if they need to be substantially improved, or the bridge collapses or so forth, that could be, you know, there's some catastrophic event, an earthquake, what have you, tornado. I mean, that could be a problem at that point, but I don't know, I struggle with the financial piece.
Mary, you know, I told you I drove it based on our conversation yesterday. And looking at that bridge, I mean, I've done a lot of construction in my life, and that bridge is one stout bridge, the way they built it. It's all concrete. And I wonder if the city engineer might have an opinion on that bridge and how well it's built and the buttressing and everything else that's been done there.
So it was designed by an engineer, like that engineer is ultimately responsible for the integrity of the bridge. Our inspectors have inspected it along the way. Yeah, seems like a good bridge.
And Mary, do we have an aerial showing the activity center and where it's situated as it relates to the house? Okay.
If we get out there, we can.
Sounds good.
I'm sorry I was late. For some reason, I kept thinking this is at 6:30 and it starts at 6, so my bad, you know, call me a newbie.
All righty. Any other questions of staff on any of the cases before we convene a general session? Okay. Do we need a break before we start?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
All we do.
Okay,
Yes, please.
Yes.
So
I'd like to wolf down one of those pizza pieces if there is any left.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Is there a lot?
See?
I was hoping so.
Send out an email and let you know.
That's all right. We had leftovers of each.
Okay, the time is now 6:41, and the Planning and Zoning Commission is reconvening into a regular session. All the commission members appear to be present. I'm Chairman Haas calling or remoting in from the virtual world. So item 3 on the agenda is citizens' appearance. Shelby, is there anybody who has signed up to speak on any item other than those listed on the agenda? And I cannot hear you.
Shelby just stepped out to go get all the papers. She'll be right back.
Okay.
All the signups.
Well, by show of hands, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on any item not on the agenda? Mary, do you see anybody? Or Matt, do you see anybody?
No one raised their hand.
Okay. Then with that, we'll move on to item 4. That's the approval of our August 17th meeting. Are there any questions, any discussion by the commission, or is there a motion by the commission?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll move that the August 17, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission minutes be approved as written.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Portman. Is there a second?
I second.
We have a second by Commissioner Guerra. Shelby, would you call the roll, please?
Please respond by saying aye or nay as I call your name. Commissioner Guerra,
Aye.
Commissioner Blankenship.
I abstained, I wasn't here.
Okay. Vice Chair Portman,
Aye.
Chairman Haas,
Aye.
Commissioner Mauer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hafman,
Aye.
Commissioner Bishop.
Aye.
All approved, none opposed, motion carries.
Okay, item 5 on the agenda is a public hearing. This is to consider approval of PD-134R2-SF-7, Coppell Greens Lot 11, Block F, a zoning change request to allow for a reduction in the setbacks between the proposed pool and the existing residence on 0.17 acres of property, located at 856 Mulberry Drive at the request of John Wittenberg and being represented by Tony Martin of Robertson Pools. We have a staff presentation by Mr. Matt Steer. Matt?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good evening. The plan development for the Coppell Greens subdivision was approved in June 1996. This allowed for the development of 226 lots on 65 acres of property. A residence was built on Lot 11, Block F, in the year 2000. The residential lot is very small and has very little area for a pool. It has a 10-foot use and utility easement in the rear yard behind the metal fence. In order to fit a pool in the backyard, the pool is proposed to be closer than the building, or closer to the building than the 5 foot that's required by the zoning ordinance. Because this subdivision is currently a plan development, and this is a zoning requirement, the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council are the authority to grant waivers to the requirements. In reviewing other cities' ordinances, the majority allow the setback between the house and the pool to be waived if the permit, the building permit, includes engineered plans for reinforcing one or both foundations to accommodate the load of the other, or a letter is submitted by a professional engineer stating that the proposed pool will not adversely affect the foundation of the primary structure. Here's a rendering of what this pool will look like. It is proposed to be at least 30 inches from the main structure. We sent out 25 notices within 200 feet. We received 4 responses in favor within that area. We sent out 100 courtesy notices within 800 feet, did not have any response there. Staff is recommending approval of PD 134R2 SF7, Lot 11, Block F, Coppell Greens, allowing for a reduction in the setbacks between a proposed pool and the existing residence, subject to an engineered plan or letter from a registered professional engineer be submitted at the time of permitting. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. The applicant and his representative are in the audience if you have any questions of them, and the building official is also in the audience if you have any permitting related questions. Thank you.
Thank you there. Thank you there, Matt. Are there any questions or discussion? I'm sorry, any questions of staff by the commission? Okay. Is the applicant here to present the case?
Sure. Anthony Martin. I work with Roberts and Pools at 569 South Coppell Road here in Coppell, and are working with the residents of John Wittenberg for the residents at 856 Mulroney.
And are you in agreement with the conditions as presented by staff?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions of the applicant by the commission? Okay. Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody who'd like to speak for or against the proposed application? Matt, if you could help me. Are there anyone?
There are not.
Okay. All right. We'll close the public hearing. Is there any discussion by the commission? Is there a motion by the commission?
Eddie, sorry, I do have one question, I guess, in regards to
Okay.
the, the registered professional engineer. Is that letter going to be from a civil engineer or geotech engineer, or does it matter?
Civil engineer.
Should be structural.
Civil?
It needs to be a structural engineer.
Hi, I'm the building official for the city of Coppell. I'm Steve Schubert. Legally speaking, according to the Texas State Board of Professional Engineers, any professional engineer is able to stamp anything that they deem themselves able to stamp, if they deem that they are competent enough to do so. So as long as it is a registered professional engineer with the state of Texas, technically speaking, they are able to seal it.
Does that help to address your question there?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Any other discussion by the commission? Is there a motion by the commission?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will move that the commission approve PD-134R2-SF-7, Coppell Greens Lot 11, Block F, subject to the staff condition.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Portman. Is there a second?
Second.
And we have a second by Commissioner Marr. Shelby, would you call the roll, please?
Please respond by saying aye or nay as I call your name. Commissioner Blankenship.
Aye.
Commissioner Guerra.
Aye.
Vice Chair Portman.
Aye.
Chairman Haas.
Aye.
Commissioner Maurer.
Aye.
Commissioner Hafman.
Aye.
Commissioner Bishop.
Aye.
All approved, none opposed, motion carries.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Item 6 on the agenda is a public hearing. This is a text amendment to our Code of Ordinances, Chapter 12, Article 35, labeled Accessory Structures, Section 3, In-Ground and Above-Ground Swimming Pools and Spas, Subsection C, Distance from the Main Structure. We have a staff presentation by Matt Stewart here. Matt?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, this is the 6th item on your agenda. It is a public hearing. This subsection of the zoning ordinance was last amended in June 2023 with the accessory structure changes. And we received a permit application in conflict with the separation requirements established for the pool to the main structure. In reviewing other cities' ordinances, the majority allow for the setbacks between the house and pool to be waived if the permit includes engineered plans for reinforcing one or both foundations to accommodate the load of the other, or letters submitted by a professional engineer stating that the proposed pool will not adversely affect the foundation of the primary structure. The proposed ordinance was attached to your packets, and staff's comfortable in recommending the ordinance amendment, which is in line with best practices. I'd be happy to answer any questions. The building officials here also, if you have any permitting related questions. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Thanks, Matt. Any questions of staff by the commission? Okay. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody who would like to speak for or against the proposed amendments to the ordinance? Shelby, do we have anybody in the audience?
No.
Okay, very good. Is there any discussion by the commission?
Yes, yes, Chairman
Go ahead.
Ross. So is there, Matt, is there any other amendments to this that you would foresee? I know this is kind of I know you don't have a crystal ball, but is there anything else that would potentially, because this obviously relates to the previous case, it's somewhat, but is there anything else you would particularly see?
No, sir. Yeah, the other setbacks are in relation to the property lines, which, I don't foresee any exceptions needed there.
Okay.
I had asked a question in our work session about accessibility along the back of the home, and the minimum requirement, the distance of 30 inches, it meets that minimum requirement for accessibility, so I'm comfortable there. Any other discussion by the commission? Is there a motion by the commission?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that Chapter 12, Article 35, accessory structures, Section 3, in-ground and above-ground swimming pools and spas, subsection C, distance from the main structure, be approved as drafted by Mr. Steer.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice Chair Portman. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Blankenship.
Yes, sir.
Ah, good, got the voice. All right, very good. Shelby, would you call the roll, please?
Please respond by saying aye or nay as I call your name. Commissioner Blankenship.
Aye.
Commissioner Guerra.
Aye.
Vice Chair Portman.
Aye.
Chairman Haas.
Aye.
Commissioner Mauer.
Aye.
Commissioner Hafeman.
Aye.
Commissioner Bishop.
Aye.
All approved, none opposed, motion carries.
Very good. Thank you very much. Item 7 on the agenda is a public hearing. This is to consider approval of S-1266-SF-7, that being 1334 Bradford Drive. A zoning change request from single-family 7 to special use permit 1266 single-family 7 to consider allowing a short-term rental on 0.22 acres of property located at 1334 Bradford Drive at the request of Marcia and Steve Allen, the property owners. We have a staff presentation by Ms. Mary Prone-Boswell. Mary?
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. This item is regarding a short-term rental. So as you know, on May 30th of this year, City Council approved an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances relating to SUPs, defining and establishing an SUP permit requirement for lodging houses, which includes short-term rentals. So all existing and future short-term rentals will be required to have a special use permit, in addition to registering with the city in order to legally operate in the city of Coppell. So we currently have 10 STRs in the city that will need to go through this process, with this being our second. So here's a map of the STRs in the city. This one we saw last month. It just went to City Council this month and was approved. And this is the one we're looking at this evening. So the applicant has owned the home since 2013, has a homestead exemption on it. The home has been used for short-term rentals since 2019. The home has one bedroom for rent with a maximum of 2 guests and is proposing to continue with this same setup with the owners of the property residing here as well. The residence is located on the corner of Bradford Drive and River Chase Drive. The single-family home has a 2-car garage and has at least 2 to 4 additional spaces on the driveway for additional vehicles to park. So the guests would have access to a bedroom, closet, and a private bathroom adjacent to the bedroom. Sorry. They'd also have access to the patio and garden outside, pool and hot tub area. So there are no signs on the building indicating that it's an STR. The site is listed on the Airbnb website. Staff has communicated with code compliance and police department. There have been no complaints for this address related to the STR. Staff has also confirmed with the Finance Department that the applicant is up to date on paying their hot taxes and submitting them to the city. So part of the current process for STR is registering with the city, which will still be required should this case be approved. So we did send out notices, 21 within 200 feet as required by state law, an additional 135 courtesy notices within 800 feet. We got, let's see, within 200 feet, we did get a phone call. I kind of explained to the person what was going on, so they were not opposed to it. So that's your green on the lower right. And then within 800 feet, we did receive 4 responses in opposition of the request. So staff is recommending approval of the request with the following conditions. 1, A, to obtain an STR permit prior to their current one expiring, and B, to notify staff of any change of property ownership. So that is the end of my presentation. I believe the applicant should be in the audience as well to answer any questions.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm back. And I caught the beginning of the presentation, but the end of the presentation, but I recall the discussion from our work session. Any questions of staff by the commission?
Chairman Haas, I have one question for Mary. I guess the 4 that called in or emailed their opposition, was there a common theme as to what they were opposing? Or
Essentially, they didn't want a party house in the neighborhood, traffic concerns, noise concerns. It was a general theme.
I have a question. So is this STR permit going to be limited to renting out the 1 bedroom? Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Mary, have there been any issues at this location prior to this resubmittal?
No, when we checked with code compliance and the police department, there were no issues at that address relating to the STR.
Okay. Okay, any other questions of staff?
Mary, did you say we have 10 in Coppell that are listed on the short-term websites?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, is the applicant here to present the case? Okay, if I could get your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Marcia Allen, 1334 Bradford Drive. And I'll go ahead and just tell you a little bit of information so you
Sure.
have some more information. So we do short-term rental out of our home with Airbnb. We rent out 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. The guest maximum is 1 to 2 people, like a couple at max. We do not allow any more than that. All the people who rent are screened through Airbnb and have good reviews in order for us to approve them before we allow them to stay with us, before we say yes to the booking. We are the owners and live in the house full-time and work remotely full-time, I do, and all guests are supervised when they're there. Some guests do Uber, some people bring a car, so there may be 1 car parked in front. We've been doing Airbnb with City of Coppell since 2019, and we haven't ever had any complaints. We have over 225 positive reviews and have ranked as a superhost every year. We have security cameras around our property so that we can monitor any activity during the day from my office. Like in my office, I have a screen so I can see what's going on. And my neighbors probably think I'm nosy because I always know what's going on in the area. The type of guests that we have booked with us are usually grandparents, relatives coming to Coppell to see their children, grandchildren, brother, sister, friends, people coming to Coppell for work training that are located usually in Coppell, people that are coming to church events, maybe at St. Anne's, people that are coming, we had a daughter come for ballet training that was in Coppell. We've had people come for some type of training at Coppell High School for really the football team, and people that are flying out of DFW on the field and want to stay like one night. We don't ever have wild people at our house because we live there, and and they know when they're booking that people live in the house, so they'd be monitored. We've had really good people. We've never had a problem. And we always send an initial greeting note, when they're booking, that tells like all the rules and how everything is to go so that they know when they're booking what to expect. So, do you have any questions?
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Are there any questions of the applicant by the commission?
Of all the, how many clients do you think you've had since 2019?
Well, I mean, we have repeat people. Like we have, people that come every
Well,
summer.
say how many stays, let's just say it that way. How many stays have been part of your business there?
226 reviews. So 226 stays over 2019.
Okay.
And sometimes people just stay for one night because they're flying out. Sometimes it's just one night, I mean, we don't get very many people to do vacations because Coppell isn't really a vacation location. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody who would like to speak for or against the proposed application? Seeing none, I will
We have
close the
one.
public. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, you need to come to the front.
Sorry about that. We could get your name and address for the record, please?
Dennis Morrow. I live at 201 Long Meadow Drive. I did receive the notifications, but I did not send in a response, so I'm one that you didn't hear from. And it's good to hear this explanation. I'm glad you did do this. The questions I have are it sounds like the stays are all short stays, not like a week or 2 weeks. Are they longer than that or just weekend type things? A little more clarity on that. The other thing is, does this require the owners to continue to live in the house while they're doing this in this situation? Or if they start getting more interest in their property, they move out and the whole place turns into a Airbnb, which then changes the control of the situation. So those are questions.
I believe the applicant stated that they are living in the house. There may be some remote work, but that they live there and pretty much control but that's a great question. We'll ask that of the applicant, as well as length of stay, if there's any implications. If I could ask you a question, how long have you lived in the neighborhood?
I was there when Eagle Point was being built. I was like the 5th house in the neighborhood. So it's 97, 96, 97, I believe.
So, and this house has been an STR, short-term rental, I think it was since 2018, 2019.
Right.
Have you experienced any negative implications from rentals?
None. I've never even knew they were doing that. I never, speaking for their behalf, I never even knew it was being operated that way. So it goes along with no current problems that I've ever noticed. But the concerns I have is if the ownership not changes, but if they move out, can they continue to rent the rest of the house?
Very good. Matt, Matt, if you could answer, I'm sorry, Mary, if you could answer that one.
So a short-term rental, for our definition, means a stay of 30 days or less. So someone could stay for one night up to, 29, 30 days. Mm-hmm. So that's what the short-term rental is for. Typically, like Marcia was saying, that people come for a day or two, maybe a week. I think sometimes it depends on the destination of, because this type of use is, all over the country. And so one of our requirements is that they have someone stay, a representative at the house, whether that be the person living there or a management person stay at the house. And that is part of our control in terms of making sure that there's someone there looking out for the property as well as the adjacent neighborhood.
Is that standard for all the STRs?
Right, that is one of our requirements.
Okay, so
And
they
so-
could move out and continue to rent the house out to multiple people?
No. No, and one of our,
Unless they had a manager there. They'd have to have a
Correct.
manager on site. Doesn't have to be them.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of our PD requirements is for if there's any change of ownership of the property. So that allows the city to go back and repeal the SUP. And so if someone wanted to do that use again, they'd have to come back through the process.
Yeah, my concern is just if it would change and turn into more of a, like you've already heard, a party house. But I have not seen that, and like I said, I didn't even know they were doing it. But just concerned about it changing in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak for or against the proposed application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any discussion by the commission? Is there a motion by the commission?
I'll make a motion for the approval of S1266 SF7 1334 Bradford Drive STR with staff conditions.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Guerra. Is there a second?
Second,
We have a second by
Blankenship.
Commissioner Bishop, I believe.
Blankenship.
I'm sorry. Okay, sorry about that. Commissioner Blankenship. Shelby, would you call the roll, please?
Please respond by saying aye or nay as I call your name. Commissioner Blankenship,
Aye.
Commissioner Guerra,
Aye.
Vice Chair Portman,
Nay.
Chairman Haas,
Aye.
Commissioner Mauer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hafman,
Aye.
Commissioner Bishop.
Aye.
Let's see. 6 approve, 1 oppose, motion carries.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much for the presentation, the application there. And sorry about that, Commissioner Blankenship. All righty, item 8 on the agenda is public hearing. This is PD-259R3-SF-7 and 9, Blackberry Farm zoning change request from PD 259 revision number 2, single family 7 and 9 to PD 259 revision number 3, SF 7 and 9, plan development 259, and revision 3, oh my gosh, I tanked this here. I'm sorry. Plan development 259 revision number 3, single family 7 and 9, to provide a new concept and detailed site plan that will allow for a gated community and private streets over 2 phases, that being 54 residential lots in phase 1, 9 residential lots in phase 2, and associated common area lots, with a change in amenities provided by a pool and pickleball courts in lieu of gardens for Lot 2X, Block C, on approximately 54.8 acres of land located on the north side of Sandy Lake Road, approximately 750 feet northeast of Starleaf Road, at the request of Denton Creek Land Company Limited and Blackberry Farms Limited, and being represented by John Dostert of Holmes Builders. We have a staff presentation by Ms. Mary Perone Boswell. Mary?
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. This is item 8, public hearing. So Blackberry Farms has been before you several times. The last time in July of 2022, where an amendment was approved to reduce the number of residential lots to 63. The residential component and layout of the project is not changing. It is still proposed to have 63 residential homes in 2 phases, with 54 in the first phase, 9 in the second phase of development. So if the PD is approved, the applicant will need to come back with a new plat and revised declarations of covenants, conditions, and restrictions to address the additional maintenance of the HOA for the roads and any additional amenities. So currently, the project is under construction with the utilities for Phase 1 and Phase 2 completed. The streets for the subdivision have already been constructed to meet city standards. If approved, the streets will be platted as a common area lot and will have access and utility easements for the city to maintain its utilities. The roadway paving for Phase 1 is also complete. They are working on installing the sidewalks and finishing up the Phase 2 roadway paving. The bridge is up, and paving for the roadway on the bridge is part of the Phase 2 roadway paving. Some of the remaining items include installing street signs, street lights, gabions, as well as submitting the LOMR and FEMA to perform site cleanup. So the existing PD conditions in place will remain, and a few new conditions are being requested. So the first main change proposed by this request is to convert the existing approved development into a gated community with private streets that the HOA would be required to maintain. This will also include the maintenance of the bridge connecting Phase 1 and Phase 2. So if you look up on the screen here, the community is outlined in red. The gray kind of tendrils there are the road, which would be converted into a common area lot to be maintained by the HOA. And so Phase 2 is the yellow on the screen, and there's a bridge connecting Phase 1 to Phase 2. So when you do have a private gated community, this entails having gates at all the entrances off of Sandy Lake Road. So the main entry exit and the secondary emergency exit by Lot 2X. So the subdivision would be accessible to the residents, their guests, as well as emergency services. This would not be a manned entrance, but a keypad entrance. There's also a turnaround proposed for those instances where someone either can't get in or turned onto the street by mistake. So this subdivision is kind of at the edge of town. The streets basically don't connect to any other subdivision. It's just the streets connect to those houses within that subdivision. So the main gates would be off of the main entryway. So one going in, one going out, and those are the design of the gates that they're proposing. In addition, you have 2 pedestrian gates on the east and west side of the main roads. And that's kind of the elevations for those gates. And then we have emergency access gate for the fire department, which would look like that. So the main gates into the community would be motorized swing gates fitted with Opticom and Knox locks, which would allow for emergency service access to the subdivision. The emergency access gate to the east of Lot 2X would also have a swing gate with emergency access hardware on it. So in this slide here, there's a sketch of the proposed additional buildings for Lot 2X. The one on the left is a proposed restroom, pool storage area, bathroom change area, and then the one on the right is a cabana area. In the middle, again, is the gates into the subdivision. And then the bottom is the proposed entry feature and sign for the subdivision. So the second part of this request is the conversion of Lot 2X from a lot with a farmhouse building and garden areas. So this is what was originally approved for this subdivision. Was for the farmhouse, which I believe is constructed, and garden areas. So this would have allowed for the occasional sale of botanical gardening materials 4 times a year for 2 consecutive weeks. So what they're proposing now is a lot that will have the existing farmhouse, which is kind of the brownish, orangish color. So this would serve as the amenity center. But the gardens have been replaced with a pool loungers, umbrellas, restroom facilities, pool cabana, grill station, bocce court, 2 pickleball courts, and a parking area with 12 spaces. The pool area, I will have an area for tanning, a play pool area, volleyball net. Surrounding the pool will be loungers, umbrellas, and a grilling station. 2 new structures are proposed to be constructed on this lot. So the pool cabana and restroom, a pool cabana and a building that will serve as a restroom changing area for the patrons, as well as storage for the pool equipment, which we saw the renderings in a previous slide. The applicant is also proposing to construct a sunken bocce ball court adjacent to the pool area. Then we've got 2 pickleball courts proposed to be constructed at the southern end of Lot 2X, so that would be fronting Sandy Lake. There will be benches with shade covers at the courts. They're not proposing to provide any pole lighting at the pickleball court areas, and that would be part of a PD condition, especially with the residential adjacency. There's an 8-foot tall stone wall that fronts Sandy Lake Road that would screen the pickleball courts both from Sandy Lake and the adjacent residential lot to the east. And then along the driveway from the stone wall to the gates to get into the site, a 7-foot iron fence with stone columns. Interior to the site, they're proposing a 4-foot steel slotted fence with from the amenity area to the parking lot. This entrance would get you into the lot in a grassy area. And then there's another fence proposed around the pool area. There's also proposed to be a 4-foot black vinyl chain link fence with shrubbery to surround the majority of the pool area. The area between the pool and the pickleball court will have a 6-foot tall black vinyl coated chain link fence, as well as between the 2 courts. And then this next slide is just showing you, excuse me, a proposed landscape plan for that front area. And then this slide is showing you the proposed landscaping plan for lot 2X with the pool and the other amenities. So now we did send out 43 notices within 200 feet, additional 92 courtesy notices within 800 feet. We did receive 1 response within the 200 feet in opposition, 1 response within 800 feet also in opposition. And then this evening, just prior to coming here, I received another 2 emails in opposition. I believe they were within the 800 feet. So, let's see. So, the second change is the conversion of Lot 2X from a lot with a farmhouse into the amenity center. So, the one opposition within the 200 feet is the resident who lives directly adjacent to the proposed amenity center, or Lot 2X. So they've lived there for about 10 years, and they are not in favor of the proposed changes to Lot 2X, indicating that it's a big departure from what they originally approved. So here you can see, the original farm with the garden areas adjacent and where their house is. I believe their bedrooms, both the master bedroom and kids' bedrooms, face towards Lot 2X. So we went from the farm and the gardens to what is currently being proposed, and I believe they're here in the audience this evening. And you received their letter via email, so I'm just going to kind of paraphrase some points from their letter, and I'm sure they'll come up and explain it further. So they're not in favor of the proposed changes to Lot 2X. It's a big departure from what they originally was approved. They're not looking to live next door to a commercial resort-like area for large gatherings, which will be disruptive to their day-to-day lives. As I mentioned, their master bedroom and 2 of the kids' bedrooms border this area. So they're not opposed to the gated community portion of it, but the new proposed amenities. As well, pickleball, these are her words, not mine, is a nuisance because of the noise. I believe there's, some other issues, like, they took down trees so that they could put the wall up, thinking that there would be additional trees planted to kind of replace those. So in the original staff report, we were recommending approval of both the gated community and the amenity center on lot 2X. Since our conversation with both Mr. Holmes and the neighbor, staff is amending the recommendation. So staff would be recommending approval of the request for a gated community, but not the changes to Lot 2X, subject to the following PD conditions. 1, that all of the previously approved PD conditions remain in place. 2, to allow for a gated community with private streets that must be maintained by the HOA. This would include maintenance of the bridge and street signs. 3, that the CCRs must be updated to address the changes in the maintenance of the streets, bridge, wall maintenance, and entry feature maintenance. 4, that existing plats must be vacated, new plats must be filed that show the streets as private and part of the common area to be maintained by the HOA. And 5, to approve the entry feature and sign. Oops. So that is the end of my presentation. Again, if, that is staff's recommendation or amended recommendation. If the applicant is here and wants to do a presentation.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Mary. A couple of questions for you. Has the applicant indicated to staff whether the modified amenities would be for residents only, or if it would be available for use as rental by others that don't live within the community?
We have not asked that question, with the assumption being that it's for the residents of that community, but you can certainly ask the applicant that.
And then there was, in the written letter in opposition to the proposed changes to the amenities, there was a sentence regarding there was a tree-lined area that were. Now I'm trying to find it.
Right. So
there was a comment about there was a comment about a line of trees that were removed, but that there was. The letter indicated that those would be replaced. Was that part of the previous approval of the plat?
Well, what I would show you is that, let's see here. The previous plan showed, you can see trees on the inside of the alley versus there are no trees there now. I believe there's some, what are they called? Nellie R. Stevens, Matt's favorite tree, that line that side of the alley now. On the plans, there were shown trees, but on her side of the fence, or their side of the fence, the neighbors, and it says proposed by neighbors, but I'll let them address that point.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Mary. Are there any other questions by the commission of staff?
Yes, Mary. On the tree note, were those trees part of the, I know it shows in the rendering, were they part of the PD condition and counted as part of the PD?
Which trees?
The trees that were shown that bordered the
alley.
gardens?
Right, so that was the exhibit that they presented to us, so that is part of the ordinance.
Okay, so those would be, so that the number, counts, and caliper is all part of the PD condition?
Right,
They have
so.
to be planted as shown?
Right, so part of Lot 2X was, they were showing gardens and trees surrounding that alleyway.
Okay. And then the second question relates to the first one. As part of the PD condition, they're required to build exactly as shown in terms of there's what, 5 or 4 gardens shown, the trees in the middle. I'm trying to get a gauge of like what is 100% required from what they're showing and what is just part of the rendering that they're showing.
So, I think there's a little bit of flexibility there in terms of, like obviously the building is very concrete, right? It has to be there and it's not moving places. I would think we'd be a little bit more flexible in terms of maybe the garden needs to get bigger or smaller or move a little bit. So I think that's a little bit more fluid, but in general, that is the concept of what they're supposed to build there.
Any other questions of staff by the commission?
Mary, was there any consistency in terms of the objections? I mean, were the objections to the pickleball or any aspects of the
Right, so the other objections were to the pickleball. Yeah.
And was that primarily due to noise? Is that
Yes, sir.
your sense of that? Okay.
Yeah, so they provided articles, showing that pickleball is a nuisance. Not my words, I'm just
The
paraphrasing.
noise of the ball and the paddle is the nuisance. It's not that the sport is a nuisance.
Right, the noise of the paddle hitting right.
Okay. All right.
So, Mary, another question. So this relates back to my question in pre-session. In terms of gauging the nuisance level, noise level, based on the distance from the existing house to the pickleball courts or to the pool, I'm trying to gauge how much of a nuisance that would be, versus just obviously just one perspective, because it's pretty far away from the structure. But I'm just trying to get a gauge of whether or not it's how much of a nuisance it actually is. Ultimately in terms of how fast sound would travel and so forth.
So I don't know what like the decibel is or anything like that, but I think it's more of the consistency of it would be kind of all day long. And so I'll let them kind of talk about it. I believe they've done a little bit more research into that aspect of it.
One of the attached articles talked about a retired engineer, an avid pickleball player, who did some studies, and that the noise can reach 70 decibels from 100 feet away, and that there's some vibration levels that could be nuisance to some folks. There's a comparison that cites a vacuum cleaner every day out down background noise is around. Is that somewhat annoying 55. So some of the pings could be, according to this article, up to 70 decibels, but it doesn't say whether this person is a sound engineer or not, just a retired engineer. So any other questions of staff? Okay, is the applicant here to present the case?
Yes, he's coming down.
I see him coming down.
Hello, commissioners and everybody. Thanks for hearing this. So I know I've been here a few times for this, and that is, I think, actually what takes to have a good community. If you're on this side of the table, and maybe some of you have been, I know some of the council members, one of the council members is that you put X amount of effort into it as you bring it, because you don't know if the math problem works, if you're even going to do this development. And then as you get more information, and certainly as this time has gone by, you see what the market wants, how the market can accept it, and then how you can embetter it. And that's, maybe not everyone would think like that, but that's certainly how I think. And so everything here that we're bringing to you is, how do we make this better? I live here in Coppell. I would be, by the grace of God, be living here in this development. So it's only about how you embetter this. I'm glad it was broken into two levels. I want to separate, well, I agree with separating it into two levels. And what I'd like to do is actually table the second. That's because the Coopells, which I super respect, they've been great to work with. It's our closest neighbor. They're great. So I wouldn't want to even try to press that without having their full acceptance. So that would be something we'd want to bring at a separate time, and just table that totally. But now for the dealing with the entrance and making it, I was the one who brought it I was not the developer, but Bill Thompson was for River Chase, and that's the only other gated community that we have. And I asked them back then, hey, it would be okay if I took this to council and tried to make it a gated community. And he said, sure, go ahead. So took the effort, didn't make a dime on it, but was successful in getting it approved at the P&Z and council. And so that's been a long time ago. I'm going to guess that's probably 25 to 30 years, if I had to guess how old River Chase is. So this is the only second time that we've even brought it to council or to P&Z. And I would not do it if I didn't think it was really important. The reason I think it's important is this site is on the outskirts of Coppell. We have gotten more dumpings, more things stolen than on any site by far. It's unlike the core of our city, where it might be like where Red Hawk is, which is near the hardware. We did get a lot of appliance stolen there, but that's a different story. I can't imagine what we'd have out here when people know they can get in and get out just so quickly. Not only that, but the way car thefts are too. People can steal car. That's a whole other thing, but they've learned how to do that really quickly too. And so what this doesn't, and I never really thought about it until the beginning, but after hearing my son, who is our salesperson in marketing, so many people were asking about, is this going to be gated? It's going to be gated, because it's kind of set up like it is. It's got a boulevard, you might say, and we'd go, no. And I never really considered it until just one day thinking about it. It's like, man, I need to ask staff if they think this could be, if they would support it. So I did, and about, they were super kind. Maybe 45 days later, talked to Matt, and and went in for a meeting, and basically they said, yeah, we think we could support this. And so based on that, I did not want to waste your time or council's time or staff's time if it's something that's like, no, don't even ask, period. So then I talked to the mayor. He, you can't go off this because it's not, I mean, you'd have to ask him, of course, but I believe he had favor for it. That would be my opinion. And then he said you might talk to the other councilman, the guy that's the architect. I forgot his name at the moment. Mark Hill, I'm sorry. And Mark was, somewhat in favor. There again, I think he didn't have a problem with it. And so based on that, I thought, okay, let's move forward and submit this. So the reasons for for really wanting it is all of our other neighboring cities do allow it, meaning the 8 ones that we're in competition with, if you will, our neighboring Las Colinas, Louisville, Frisco, Plano, Dallas, South Lake, Colleyville, Westlake, all have them, which doesn't mean it's right, but there's a lot of people who are, they travel a lot, or they're the empty nesters that want to go see grandkids, whatever, they're gone. That's who I think, that's who we are attracting and going to sell to. It's going to be the whole gamut, empty nesters, but also families also. But, and so that's important to them. Security is super important, of course. The other thing is this empties right out onto our second busiest street. We got Denton Tap, of course, maybe MacArthur, but our east-west corridor, this is not a collector street, which Red Hawk, almost every other community, certainly planned communities, empty onto a collector street, which then empties onto a major artery, which this would be. So it's unlike anywhere. You go out and you're on Sandy Lake Road, and it's busy there, and people are flying. A lot of so we've had quite a few dumpings. I've reported the last one finally, and I just clean it up, and it's just a constant part of business, you might say. But I think that's why we're requesting this. I think it just makes good sense. I think it's not this exclusivity. That's really not the issue. It's more of a protection issue, and the police see it. They came around to take pictures. Actually, the last one, believe it or not, we saw a receipt of the roofing delivery ticket on where it went to. So they actually came and picked it up. The city police department know about this, and I reported it, and they didn't write a report, but they helped facilitate getting it picked up. And so usually you're not so lucky as to have a receipt from a roofing supply house thrown out there too with the trash. But we were there. So we think it'll raise the value of the homes. We think it attracts a buyer that is looking for that, and it will, and that's the level of client that we're looking for, meaning a detailed home, not necessarily the size, that's not the issue, but a detailed home, as detailed as anywhere in the Metroplex. That's what we want to build here. And as far as whenever, so the Lot 2X or whatever it is, the issue there is back when we first brought this, I thought the gardens would be cool. It goes along with our theme, but the gardens are really difficult to do. The lady who started them, my daughter and wife have a bakery down at the market, but they also know with Amanda Van Hooser, I think I'm not messing up her name too bad, but she was one of the ones that actually started the 2 gardens that we have here. And she told Michelle, my wife, that she goes, that will be really hard to keep on. She strongly discouraged it, and this is maybe a few years ago. And I thought, okay, we'll keep going. So my main goal is that we build something that is used. It's a lot of land there, and it's like you can't do something that's not used or a burden for the HOA. We just can't do that. And so, granted, a pool could be a burden for the HOA. It is, and it could be. So that's, I'd like to table that part of it, make sure that the neighbors are comfortable with it. But I think that, the noise, I would view noise as 2 things. One, there's irritating noise, and one, there's happy noise. When we back up to a school and you hear kids laughing and playing and having fun, that's fun noise to me. That's not the Dallas Gun Club necessarily, or Sandy Lake Road traffic and fire trucks and whatever else, motorcycles. So that's different. But I think I think I'd like to just table that, if that's good, and if you have any questions, then I can So our goal is to build something that would be used in the future. That's number one. That's a benefit for the community, not a negative. And as far as the maintenance, I wanted to just address, okay, maintaining these roads, because that's super important. We have $300,000 that has to go in, which was originally part of the PD. It will go in to the HOA to manage the creek erosion. Don't think we're going to have creek erosion because of what we're doing and how we're stabilizing the parcels or the outside curves of the creek. I think we'll be great on that. We're actually just starting to do that now. Because of the eagles and the rains and stuff, this has taken like a year longer than we thought it would. But it's coming together now. The bridge is in, everything is paved as of or a few days ago, and I drove over the bridge for the first time today. But as far as the maintenance of it, we believe that we would increase the dues by $1,500 a month, a year, I'm sorry, $1,500 a year, and that would, and this is not for the amenity center, this is strictly for the gated community. That $1,500 would add up to approximately $96,000 per year, and times 30 years, the streets at a minimum, I mean, they last longer than that, but streets that are built correctly would last 30 years. Where I live, we've been in our house 30 years, the streets have had almost no repair, and they're great. And talking to staff, that they're kind of rated for about a 50-year life cycle. So if I take the $96,000 per year, set aside an HOA, that comes to $2.8 million for 30 years, and it comes to $4.8 million for 50 years. The roads cost, and that's today's dollars, but the road cost is $1.2 million. Of course, staff's got these numbers because we've had to, pay inspection fees and stuff based off this. The bridge is approximately $1.1 million, so a total of $2.3 million. That's today's dollars, and then accounting for if we put that money as it's going and accumulating, as it accumulates, that's today's dollars for $1,500. 5 years from now, it's not going to be $1,500. We'll raise dues to keep up with inflation. So with the inflation, keeping up with that, the money, the HOA should have plenty of money to repair any streets, because it's costing 2.3, almost double that. It is double. The 4.8 million is what we'd have in 50 years. Granted, there may be some money used for maintaining streets, but if the streets are maintained, it was even some of staff's recommendation or thoughts that they would probably last over 50 years if they're properly, routed out and caulked when they need to be. So we think the math problem of how to maintain them is not an issue. Granted, removing and replacing a bridge or street is not the same as building a new street. That's two different pricings. But we think still that there would be ample monies for that. I think that's all I have, but I'd surely encourage any questions.
Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation there. Thank you for the consideration on pulling the Lot 2X for further evaluation. I did have a question regarding that. Is that amenity center, is that strictly for residents only, or could that be used, rented out for family or friend of family that does not live in the community?
It's probably just for the HOA. Now, if the HOA wanted to allow that, in the future, it's really going to be up to the HOA to vote on that, I think.
Okay.
But what we would be saying now to the members or the buyers of the HOA is that would just be for the HOA. Yeah, we want to make something really cool. There's some great workout things that could be done there in the future, so, yeah.
Thanks for continuing that element, and I feel confident that you all will come up with something good here. I do agree that the Blackberry Farms The roads in there are local streets, and basically it's a large cul-de-sac, if you will. And so, and I never really thought about the safety issue, but thanks for pointing that out. But I do have questions. The math, just kind of looking at it on face value here, some of that math might work. How many lots have been sold currently?
We have specifically not sold any lots, meaning
Okay.
closer,
Okay.
because we don't need other people to sign the plat. I want to be the only one to sign the plat. But we have many prospects, and because this has taken so long, we have lost many prospects that have gone somewhere else just because of time. But we think the market's still very good for it. We're very fortunate.
Okay. Where I was going with that, I didn't know if lots had been sold, and now they're going to get a surprise. Oh, by the way, if we privatize the streets, you might have another be
Absolutely
involved.
not.
But, okay, yeah, okay, good. Are there any questions of the applicant by the commission?
I do have some questions. I guess two of them. One is, I appreciate your concern with security, but, with the gated community, do you think you're going to alienate the rest of the community by doing that? And then the second question, I know you want to table this, but can you kind of describe the interaction with your adjacent property owner in regards to the revisions that you were trying to do the common area?
Yeah, before, when I just had it sketched up I love drawing and designing, so I had sketched up originally, it looks almost exactly like what was presented today. I went to them and sat down at their dining table and told them, and they didn't say, yes, we love this. They had reservations because of the unknown and the noise and everything. Their bedroom, I think it's maybe technically their bathroom and their closet is on that side, but their bedroom maybe faces more of Sandy Lake Road. But they've been great to work with, so I would never want it. I mean, they've done things for us. We've hopefully done things for them where it's been just a good mutual relationship. Raj is in the development business also, so, it's like-mindedness.
So I have a question, sir.
Sorry, but going back to the question about alienating the rest of the community with the gated entrance.
They can call me, I'll let anyone in. I mean, it's not that, and I know gated communities, you can stand around and wait for it to open and you can go in. I've done it, because whatever, my thing wouldn't work in the communities that I'm building in. It's really, I don't view it as that. I view it as it's the appearance of security. It's really not that secure. And if someone wants in, you just hang out a while and you go in when someone else goes in. But for the criminal, that's a different story. I don't think they're going to hang out up front with a loaded thing of shingles that they just tore off from over in North Lake Woodlands, and they're going to look the dump on a lot that's gated. We'll, of course, have a lot of cameras. We specifically did not want a gatehouse. We don't want that appearance. It's not that. We don't want. I know that the exclusivity kind of thing. It's not as much that people can get in. They're usually. Often, we'll leave them open during the daytimes for construction because they're just overused and will get damaged. So they're really going to be closed at nighttime for, probably the next 8 years. They will be open during the daytime.
Ken?
Sir, thank you for presenting this evening. I've got a few questions for you. So, the previous plat that was approved, to my colleague's point here, had a bunch of trees on the east side. So what is your plan to mitigate the tree circumstance is question number one. And then I'll confess, I'm an avid pickleball player, and I got excited when I saw, whoa, someone's proposing some pickleball courts out there, which I got excited about. But I'm also very sensitive to the neighbors' concern about the noise. I was in Memphis 2 weekends ago, and we went to a private lot, and they put a covered, enclosed pickleball court on their site, and there was no noise, and it was beautiful. And that may be one way to mitigate this circumstance. I notice you've got really quite a bit of room on this site to be able to move things around as you need. So kudos to you to work with the neighbor to see if you can figure out, what might help them in terms of mitigating the noise situation. Because I'm very concerned about it. I play pickleball all the time, and it is loud.
Yeah.
And there's just no getting around it, but it's fun, and it is an amazing and beautiful amenity for that project. So kudos to you for moving forward with that. So I'd like to recommend that you work with your people and take a look at that. What do you expect with these public streets for the total HOA cost to be on a monthly basis for your people?
Yeah, so excluding the amenity center, because that's on its own, that's separate. But we think they'll go from around $1,200 to $2,700. And
that's per month?
No, per year. No.
$1,200 to $2,700.
Yeah, per year. Which, if we manage it, which we will, as a declarant for, probably a long time if I'm still living there, So you can manage these pretty inexpensively. At Red Hawk, I think the place still looks real good. It's, I think it's $1,270. I could be wrong. It's something around that, but that includes mowing the front yards and the, because I bought it on a total basis for the security also is a part of it. And we have like I could be off a little bit, 120,000 in reserve or something like that. We have a lot of money in reserve. You manage it closely, and you just save money. So our management fee is very nominal. If they manage, they're now self-managing it, and I help them, but we made the conversion. We're not the declarant anymore, starting this year. And even today, I got a text from one of the board members. There's two guys that are running the board member, but they're self-managing. That's what they would probably do here. If I wasn't living here, even then we'll probably be self-managing technically.
Well, thank you for that. It'll be interesting to see how those numbers turn out for you, but yeah. Good luck with all that. Regarding the trees, you have ways that you can mitigate that within your site design here. So
yeah,
when you come back, we'd like to make sure that you've figured that out.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and so I didn't answer that part. If you have gardens, the reason we thought gardens would be cool there is because you really can't grow anything on your lot because you got so much shadow from the neighboring house. You just don't have enough sunlight to grow things. And so what farmers need, you need no trees, so you have optimum sunlight. And that's the negative with the trees that are around there. But we'll come up with something and make that a part of it where we need, so we'll have to make sure, whatever it is, that the usage is, this is how I'm thinking, that the usage has to be something that's great for the community, and then we'll design it to where it's functional and looks beautiful. It's what you see when you walk in, drive in, and it's got to always look awesome. So.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? I'm sorry. Any other questions of the applicant by the commission?
Yes, Chairman Oss. So in terms of the increase of $1,200 to $2,700 a year, was that primarily for the maintenance of the streets by privatizing them?
Yeah, an additional $1,500. And so I asked Dylan, my son, okay, would people be willing to pay $1,500 more a year? And it's like, oh, not an issue. I mean, a lot of the ones we're paying now, the smaller the developments, the higher the price goes up. So we're in Matthews Court in South Lake. I think it's around $9,000 a year. There's only 8 homes though, one straight cul-de-sac. So when you get 63, a different math problem.
And what does that maintenance typically entail?
What's the cost?
And what does it entail when you're describing maintaining the streets?
Okay, so concrete streets, which we have. The only thing you need to do is, well, I'd say two things. Number one, if you allow trees in the parkway, those trees are going to disrupt the quality of the streets. So you either got to, not allow roots to go into the streets. So that's one thing you do for preventive maintenance. And the city knows all about that. I mean, we saw Beltline Road, and I study this stuff all the time. Where they dipped was immediately where there were trees in the median. Just as you went down Denton Tap, turning to Beltline Road. So you deal with that, and then number two, when there is a crack, you router them out, or you take a quickie saw and you cut them out, and you fill them with. And with that, most people would say that will extend the length of a street substantially, and that's huge. And it's hard for cities to do that. You got so many streets, and maybe the quality street and whatever. The other thing is these streets were all built to the standards, as what was said and inspected and paid the inspection fee of a public street. So we paid additional for inspection and private, and they were built to the standards and tested, lab reports sent in. And we went kind of above board. Normally you only test lifts, and because we have about 7 to 8 foot of fill, and you only test lifts because we went right down to native soil and went a foot below. And you test lifts about every foot. We test it every 6 inches because compaction is super important, and it's, lawsuits are for home builders is just about foundations. So prefer not to have those.
And then do you plan on having a developer managed HOA for some period of time?
Yeah, we as a developer, or the declarant, I think is what our official title is, we will manage that. We will be the managers of it.
Is there some point when that sunsets?
Yeah, when it's basically when we sell our last lot, because I do not want an HOA board to be driving the architectural control committee. It kind of just comes down to that. It's not about Christmas lights or whatever else. It's about, I don't want them, I don't want to have to respond to them or for the HOA, or for the architectural control guidelines. I want to do that myself. Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions of the applicant?
One more question. Second question,
okay.
In terms of the trees, was it your understanding that you were going to plant as it was shown on the rendering previously, you were going to plant the trees as shown?
Well, there's trees shown on the east of our property, and which is on the Akua's property, and so it's noted on their proposed trees by neighbors or something like that. So that would be on their nickel and whatever. We've worked together to build a retaining wall. It was just kind of a big ditch that was weeds / trees, but it was ugly. So now, since the development, it's now built up. We've worked together in building a retaining wall. That's just 3 courses of block, so 24 inches high. So it's level now with their driveway. It will be perfect when it's done. The drainage will be optimum, and it'll be a great place for them to plant trees, I think is what I think their game plan is. But
so the trees that were shown on the east side were not on your property?
No.
Okay.
I drew those not out of trying to be salesy, I guess, but I think that's what we've chatted. I think that's what they are planning on doing, but I could be wrong. It'd be a good question for that.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you. We may come back to you with any follow-on questions. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody who'd like to speak for or against the proposed application? I guess we'll kind of keep it to the privatization / gates of the development, since we're tabling the other item, or that'll come at a different time. Anyone who'd like to speak for or against the proposed application? I don't see any movement in there. Shelby, anybody moving there? I see somebody. Is somebody coming down?
Yeah, we did have 2 people signed up. I'm not sure if they are still wanting to speak or not, though.
Sir, were you wanting to speak on the amenity house, or was that the streets?
Yeah, that was the main thing, but I just want to clarify
Sure.
one thing.
Yeah.
My name is Henry Tate. I moved to this little place in 1969, and population 1,726, and lived over on Freeport Parkway. And over on Freeport Parkway, we had a few incidences of petty theft, break-ins, not much. But y'all widen the street over there, so I'm down the street here, right next to the Akulas, and been there for 12 years. Never had anything taken, never had anything disturbed. Had a rent house there since '80, right next to the Akulas. Nobody's ever missed anything. I just thought I'd address Mr. House on that Coppell is still a pretty safe place. That's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you very much. I saw somebody else standing in the back. Would you like to say anything? Okay, I see you coming down.
I don't know if 3 minutes is going to take this, but this is, hello, Jeff Barnell. I'm a real estate broker. I own Coppell Realty. I own 3 businesses in town. Also am the owner of Trinity River Kayak. Got some new commissioners here, so they probably don't know me, but a lot of people do here. I appreciate your time. I can tell you, Mr. Holmes, he said he's been here a few times. He has. He was here December 2012, the same night I was. How late did we stay here, Mr. Haas? That night when Trinity River Kayak got approved, it was 1 o'clock in the morning. Okay? He is developing a quality development. He's got a history of doing that in town. And as he said, things evolve and things change. He needs to change to make things desirable to be able to sell. He's selling Coppell. He's selling a community. The tax dollars alone off of this is going to be huge for the city of Coppell. Going to be a tremendous boost for the city of Coppell. And he's going to take care of the maintenance of it. So I think that's huge, number one. Number two, the gated community. I want to talk about that just a little bit. I live on Sandy Lake Road myself. I have a gate. I have to because of the theft. There's police reports on my theft. I've had 3 police reports filed on my property since 2012. 3 police reports. Okay? My lawnmowers, my lawn crew got cleaned out just because my gates were open and they were out there mowing the yard. Police report out there for that. Okay? You think St. Joseph Village doesn't have a gate? They have a gate. You think the Akulas don't have a gate? They have a gate. Sandy Lake Road has over 30,000 cars a day, has a lot of people coming in and out that aren't Coppell, aren't here for a family community for a lifetime. They're here for opportunity. They're here to get what they can get and get out. That's just a fact. It's happened to me. The noise. Let's talk about the noise. We all live on Sandy Lake Road. I can tell you the noise drowns out anything from the cars and the trucks. I can also tell you Southwest Airlines flies right over our properties. You're not going to hear that pickleball 100 feet away. It's not going to be, I know that's table, but I would highly support that because that's going to make this community even more so desirable because he's evolving and he's changing as a real estate developer to make his community desirable so that he can sell his properties so that Coppell can grow in kind. think I covered it all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak for or against the proposed application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Discussion by the commission?
Chairman, I just had a question, just to be clear, because Mr. Varnell started raising the noise issue, but Lot 2X is definitely off the table today, and if anybody has comments for or against it, they should save them for another time. Correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
So any comments regarding the request for gated community by the commission? I had quite a few questions and hypotheticals in our work session, but I feel like I'm satisfied by the responses I got, the responses from the applicant regarding the increase in annual dues there for HOA dues, that they may offset that. Kind of seems like a win-win. Thank you to Mr. Varnell on the safety issue, or at least highlighting that potential out there. Sorry to hear that that's so prevalent in that neck of the woods. Gosh, hope we can fix that. But I don't feel that there's any real negative financially to the city on the gated community, and that there's a finance model to address O&M as needed. So I feel that this is probably appropriate for this development. That's just my thoughts. Any other thoughts by the commission?
Chairman Haas, I wholeheartedly agree with your comments. I think from a gated community perspective, I don't think it's a negative for the city. I think removing the 2X to address that is certainly appropriate. Although I do think in terms of just making sure the city and developer are both clear in terms of what the requirements are and, what's on the property line and what's not, and just to ensure, full transparency about everyone knows what, what's required and what's not. So it seems like there's maybe some confusion there, but I think, from an approval standpoint, I support it.
I guess from my perspective, I oppose the gated community portion of it. Again, it just didn't reflect what the community is. I understand there's safety or security concerns, and that's with any construction site that's going to occur. But again, it's just, in my opinion, it just didn't reflect what the community is.
Anybody else? Okay. Is there a motion by the commission?
Yes, Chairman Haas, I'll give this a run. Recommend modification of zoning request plan development 259 revision 2 single family 7 and 9 to PD 259 R3 single family 7 and 9 plan development, subject to staff conditions 1, 2, 5, with the modification to remove the word amenity or amenity area, and 6 and 7.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Mara.
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
So, okay, I think there's some confusion. Because I know what's in your staff report. I think you're looking at that.
I am, yes.
But then this is what the revised conditions are on the
got it.
screen.
Okay.
So if you want to take a minute and read it.
Sure.
Make sure I didn't mess it up. And perhaps modify your.
Yes, okay. Recommend modification of zoning request PD 259 R2 SF 79 to PD 259 R3 SF 79 subject to staff conditions 1, 2, modifying 3 to remove.
I think you just need to say as the revised modification
okay,
shown
as
on the
the
screen.
As the revised, okay, I didn't know you revised them. As the revised conditions show.
I second it.
We have a motion by Commissioner Maurer, and I think I heard a second by Commissioner Hathman.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay. Shelby, would you call the roll, please?
Please respond by saying aye or nay as I call your name. Commissioner Blankenship.
Aye.
Commissioner Guerra.
Nay.
Chairman Portman. Vice Chair Portman, sorry.
Aye.
Chairman Haas.
Aye.
Commissioner Maurer.
Aye.
Commissioner Hafman.
Aye.
Commissioner Bishop.
Aye.
Let's see, 6 approved, 1 opposed, motion carries.
I'd just
Okay,
like
very-
to, sorry, Eddie, I'd like to interrupt for a second. Just want to make sure that everyone understands that the gated community part, we've, made a recommendation on that they would have to come back with a new submission for the amenity center, or Lot 2X. Lot 2X, no, I won't call it the amenity center, Lot 2X. They have to come back as a new application.
I kind of feel that was implied that they were going to bring that back, but thanks for that clarification there. Is there any procedural problems that we just created here?
No, I'm just verbalizing
Okay.
that we're
Very
all on the
good.
same page.
Yeah, very good. And I appreciate that the applicant will be working with the neighbors, just finding a potential solution to better the community. So thanks for that. Okay, that is item, where are we here? That was item, I think, 8 on the agenda. Item 9 was the review of the city council actions. We reviewed those in work session. Item 10 is adjournment. Is there any other final comments by the commission before we adjourn? Okay. The time is 8:12, and with that, I'll adjourn our meeting. Thank you.